All right. Good morning, everyone. This is the All About Nothing podcast, kind of daily show. I am Barrett Gruber, host of the All About Nothing podcast. You can find me on social media at Barrett Gruber. This is Bill Kimler, host of Black, White, and Blue in the South with Jameel Brooks, Dr. Jameel Brooks, of course. Follow him at Political Bill SC. Good morning, Bill. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It was it felt like a very brief weekend. Not a whole lot happened for me. I went to a baseball game and
Did your team win or lose?
so it was not a lot of winning this weekend. The Braves
Ooh.
lost the series to Boston. Fireflies lost Friday night when I went, and then watched some baseball Sunday, and they lost again. So
the common denominator is that you were at all three. So I'm sensing a pattern here.
I was in viewing range of all three. I wouldn't say I didn't go to the Braves game.
I say next weekend you watch and attend nothing and see what happens.
I think that's,
and then you have yourself a good experiment.
I'm just gonna put myself into a coma and experience nothing at all. Hey, real quick, I want to remind everybody the 10th annual, I'm sorry, it's not annual, the 10th Masters of Putt-Putt's coming up Friday, August 22nd. You can register at everplaysocial.com. Also,
if it's not the 10th annual, is it like the 10th time this month? I mean, what is it?
It is the 10th of them. It used to be they do them yearly. Now they do them semi-yearly. So you get one or two, maybe three a year. And they're
whenever they feel like it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's pretty much it. Also check out ZJZ Designs for all of your apparel needs. And we are nominated for Best of Columbia. And I was thinking about it, Bill, that includes you too. You know, you're a part of this too.
I am. I feel like I'm just dragging you down.
No.
But I did cast my vote. I'll let you know.
Fantastic.
I cast my vote for the All About Nothing podcast. And then I created a burner account and then voted for Welcome to Wonderland.
That feels fair.
Yes.
Yeah. The feeling is that we are probably going to share a lot of votes with me over at Welcome to Wonderland. Also, we potentially are going to share a lot of votes with the hosts Midas and Fame over at the podcast, and I know the name of the podcast. I can't think of it right off. No Shortcuts with Midas and Fame. Every single one of the podcasts that are up for Best of Columbia, I have either been on or they have been on our show. So there are none of the episodes that have any let's see. Ami also she did express a gratitude for voting for. But every single contestant in this contest, which is redundant, has either been on the show or I've been on their show. And it's
given your track record of sports wins of everything you've participated or watched or attended, I have a feeling that every one of these podcasts is going to lose. There will be no winner this year. That is my prediction. They have yanked the category entirely once they saw who the nominees were. That's my prediction.
That might be an epic failure to watch. Brand new episode of Welcome to Wonderland today, out with Preach Jacobs as the guest.
Oh, wow.
Talking about DJing. So Ami's got a new episode coming that is out this morning.
Hey, I got to plug Ami's last episode, and I sent her a note about this. She had a whole episode with some condition I can't pronounce to this day, but it's basically face blindness.
Yeah.
And it was a riveting episode, and she tied together maybe 4 different interviews from different times into one cohesive narrative. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I had just happened to listen to another podcast called Revisionist History with Malcolm Gladwell. And they had just done an episode on the same subject.
Really?
But they covered face blindness and then the opposite, those who have face photographic memory, and told the story. Some guy recounted the story about President Bill Clinton, who he met in Arkansas as a high schooler, maybe middle grade schooler, and got to meet the president. He was governor of Arkansas at the time. And then if you fast forward 15 years later, he's greeting him at some other event as president, and Bill Clinton recognized him. He says, I remember you were at so-and-so school, and these were the only 2 times in history the two met. And given all the people that a president meets, to have that instant face recognition. So it reminded me of that movie. What was that movie with Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis? Was it Glass?
Oh,
Un,
well,
actually, Unbreakable. That's
yeah,
the one, the first one, where the hypothesis is if you've got people who are genetically born with disabilities and brittle bones, as Samuel L. Jackson's character had, then there had to be people born on the opposite side of the spectrum with iron bones, and
right.
unbreakable bones, which is what Bruce Willis was. And so I'm thinking there's got to be some truth to that. If you've got this condition of face blindness, and then you've got the exact opposite, which is almost a superpower of face recognition over decades. It was a fascinating subject, and the fact that the two came up within the same week, I thought was brilliant. And Ami's take on it was very distinct from how revisionist history did it. So it was very complimentary.
Very good. That yeah, I did. I listened to it as well. I thought it was a fantastic episode, and it featured at least me a little bit. Um,
A
also,
face people try to forget yet can't, which is another condition.
I do not fail at forgetting people all the time, so it's not. I also want to say brand new episode of Politically Speaking comes out tomorrow morning. They are recapping the South Carolina Democratic Party convention, the fish fry, the palmetto blue dinner, or the blue palmetto dinner.
I was not able to attend that, so I can't wait
Yeah.
to hear their recap.
Yeah, it was they seemed to have a very good time doing that episode. We did it Sunday night after they had all recovered from the weekend, so it was very good.
And then I have an episode dropping tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll tell you why later on in this episode because we got something coming up. But I'm editing the episode for tomorrow now, and it is with a gentleman from here in Greenwood who is a conservative Republican operative. His entire life spent in Republican politics. In fact, he was the chair of the Greenwood Republican Party at one point. He's also an accomplished bluesgrass musician with a couple albums to his name. And he labels himself as a true conservative, yet he was the first person in South Carolina to violate the Heritage Act.
Really?
So it is a fascinating story, I think, of a person who does not fit into any one category. I think it's worth a listen to hear why we brought him on our show.
So just because I don't know what the Heritage Act is, what?
Oh, it's one of those things where if you are going to change or take down or in any way alter a monument in South Carolina, you have to get approval of the General Assembly. And I think the law initially was by 2/3 vote. So if you wanted to rename a building or take down a Confederate war monument or something, you had to get a 2/3 approval by the General Assembly. I think the 2/3 number was struck down by the Supreme Court, and now it's just a simple majority. But that's what the Heritage Act is, and this guy was the first to violate it. I mean, you'll find out why.
Does that go for any named whatever here in South Carolina as far like would Fort Jackson? So Fort Jackson named after Stonewall Jackson.
It has to be state property and not federal.
Okay.
Right. So that I think would be federal. But if you're looking at like a public school building, needs a name change or a rest area, you would have to get approval from the lawmakers to do that. So that's our episode tomorrow if we're able to release it in time.
Okay. Very good. How was the wedding?
Well, that was the big event for me this past week, and I am exhausted physically and emotionally. It was over about a 2,000-mile round trip drive that I made. My wife and her daughters flew, so I drove up there with all the luggage and met them at the airport.
Okay,
up in New York.
So that was going to be one of my questions. Was why drive when obviously flying is an option?
Yeah, when you've got like 10 dresses and rehearsal outfits and lots of paraphernalia, the best was for me to be the luggage chauffeur, the luggage Uber, Bill Uber. They call me Boober. I was the Boober.
What is the paraphernalia? Give me an example of paraphernalia that doesn't.
You don't understand when you've got a woman and two girls, teenager or above, and it's just 10,000 pounds of hair products, makeup products, all that stuff.
Okay, yeah,
and drugs.
Yeah.
So the wedding was in Albany, New York. That's where my daughter lives, and she and her longtime fiance got hitched on Saturday. In probably the most beautiful ceremony I've ever been part of. It was a Star Wars themed event. So the two of them are huge into Star Wars, and they made all the entrance music came from Star Wars movies, which were absolutely beautiful scores.
Yeah.
Once you hear it in the context of a wedding, oh my goodness. The reception, we all had lightsabers, and
Yeah.
we created this arch of, like an entrance arch, where all the groomsmen, groomswomen, and everybody else created an arch for them to walk through, which was
Yeah.
a really stunning visual. And then lightsaber dance parties for everybody involved, which was an absolutely I felt like should have been passed around, and it is just glowing sticks and people jumping up and down to pulsating music. I was like, man, this is my first rave. This is great. One of the highlights for me was the toast that I gave at the reception. So my daughter married into a Spanish-speaking family.
Right.
So her fiance and his family are from El Salvador. I mean, he was born in the U.S., but his parents immigrated from El Salvador decades ago. And so that extended family came from all over the country, and most spoke decent English, but there were some that spoke only a little English, and grandma did not speak at all, right? She was Spanish only. So I gave a toast, and I had some introductory words, and then I had a special message for the Spanish speaking members of the family. And so I spoke a good minute and a half in Spanish only. So, Barrett, one thing you have to know about me, I don't speak another language, not
Okay.
at all. And in fact, it terrifies me. I feel like I'm a smart individual. I studied math and physics in college. I've got my master's degree in physics. I'm published in science. I feel like I can learn anything except a foreign language. My brain is just not wired for it. Almost lost a college scholarship because of my grades due to Spanish. And I worked harder at that than I did in quantum mechanics. And it just never clicked. I feel like people who are multilingual are some of the smartest people in the world. I
Agreed.
don't know how that is. It's possible. So I wrote up the speech, what I wanted to say, and then I chat GPT'd the translation.
Okay.
And I even said, say it as natives from El Salvador will say it, because I wanted the local dialect. And Chat GPT apparently did a decent job. And then I took the results and had Google Translate read it out loud,
Okay.
so I can get the pronunciation. And I also had Google Translate it back to English, so I can do that cross comparison, make sure
Right.
that the translations worked, and it came out great. So I did this all the morning of the wedding because I am the world's worst procrastinator. This is an idea that I had since the day they got engaged, and I waited literally until the morning of the wedding to write out what I wanted to say, translate it, rehearse it. But I did it, and it was very well received. I will be playing the speech and the translation of that speech on a future episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. So I'm going to debut it there. But it was a moment of pride for me because it was a message of unity and reaching out and saying how we need to come together so that couples like this can have a chance to succeed in life. And it touched it, and there's some funny parts as well, but I think it reached their hearts and was universally appreciated. The message I got back was events like these are typically all in English, and it felt very inclusive for the father of the bride to speak in Spanish during the toast.
Yeah.
And it was greatly received. And I think more effort like that needs to be made, rather than fear mongering and othering and demonizing and taking the worst of the worst examples and then trying to make that the norm, trying to make people think that that's the norm across the entire group. And it was just one of the most lovely weddings I've ever, probably the best wedding, better than all three that I've been part of.
Yeah.
It was great.
I agree completely. I think people that speak multiple languages, even if it's just two languages, I think that they're the ability to flip back and forth between those, for most of my life, it's all been math and science for me as well. I studied applied mathematics in college, and as well as broadcast communication, and decided which one was easier. But I did applied mathematics. I was very good in physics. I was very good with trigonometry and that sort of. Those were my subjects I was good at. But yeah, learning. I took 3 years of Spanish, and I walked away probably able to have a very brief, simple conversation mostly probably just asking for directions to the library. But I do I absolutely respect my next door neighbor. He is Dominican. He is retired from the University of South Carolina, where he taught Spanish and Spanish histories at the university. And now he's retired, but he's also, and you know how it is to be retired, you got to go back to work. He is now at Midlands Tech here in Cologne, in Lexington, and also he teaches Spanish. And he noted that one of the things that he has noticed is the number of Spanish speaking students in his class that are taking it to learn better English through someone that is teaching Spanish, but because they do a lot with the English speaking, that they're learning English through the same class. In fact, Julie does once a month. She'll go to an ESL class, an English second language class, with through Lexington County, or through a friend of hers through Lexington County, that they do at the middle school, where they will just sit down and have conversations with people that are trying to learn English as a second language. So you just sit down and talk to them. It's not.
To
It's not
me, it
about
was the speaking
instructing.
part. I would panic. Like if it was just written word, read this book, translate this passage,
Sure.
write this sentence, I did okay. But anytime I had to just even say my name,
Yeah.
I would freak out and freeze. It was a psychological thing that I've never gotten over.
Me llamo es
So,
Barrett.
all right, I got to go. Bye.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah, no, I totally get that. But I'm glad that it was such a fantastic weekend. And
So
Amanda,
apparently, the trick to being able to speak comfortably in another language is to have a couple of rum and cokes in you before you attempt to do so. That apparently was enough to get me over the edge.
well, let's look. uh,
Look, as far as I got to go back and watch the recording, I might have just done this blah 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 blah, blah the entire time. It made no sense whatsoever, and they all just nodded like I was special needs. Trying
Yeah,
to communicate.
yeah, and everybody was
Uh,
like, "Oh, Amanda's grandfather's mumbling to himself again." Somebody
but
give him a
I
microphone.
actually thought I got the accent down okay. I didn't come across as a Southerner speaking, yo la tango,
Yeah, yeah,
that type of speaking. I think I got the R's rolled and the syllable emphases pretty well, and I got a lot of that from watching TikTok. By the way, just there are some people with some thick Spanish accents that I was
yeah,
able
yeah.
to. You just pick up the ear for it.
That's great.
But it was a wonderful. Both of my ex-wives were there. My poor current wife had to go to a beauty salon because they had a mothers of the bride appointment, for hair and
Uh-huh.
makeup, and that would be and the mother of the groom as well. So his mom was there, and then my three wives all had to be together in the same room. I was like, oh gosh, it's like my wall of shame. Said to Carla, I am so sorry I had to do this to you. But they all got along fine.
Well, your son, I assume, will probably get married one day.
Yeah.
This is an experience that you'll have to go through again. Your son is from your first wedding as well?
Yeah, yeah. So
So,
both of my biological kids are from my first wife.
yeah. So,
None with the second, and then two stepdaughters that I've,
yeah.
I've raised, with my current wife since they were toddlers. So yeah, he would probably be next. It probably won't be as emotional. Just the relationship between father and son's a lot different than the son or a daughter and father.
Yeah.
That's a little different. Plus, I don't have to pay for that wedding, so I'm a lot less emotionally invested.
You're the tradition of having the father of the bride pay for the wedding. That is it I, I I was not aware, and so my first wedding was not that tradition. It was a South Carolina thing, because at
Shotgun. She was pregnant 9 months. What
no,
was
God,
what's the South
no.
Carolina
I can't
tradition?
I can't I can't tell you how grateful I am that pregnancy was not in the cards for that. No, he so initially, so we did it at the Catholic Church out in Chapin, Our Lady of the Lake. And the only cost, because we were members of the church, was that we had to pay for the insurance which was $100 for the church. So then it really just came down to we did it after Christmas, so it was already decorated for Christmas with all of the flowers and everything. So we didn't have to do that. I think the only thing we really did was just ran some ribbons around. That was pretty much it. The focus wound up being on the reception at the Life Center that was attached to the church, which wound up being the most costly thing. Was we got it down to about $25 a plate, and we only invited about 100 people, so it wasn't a huge crowd. So what we pretty much got down to about $2,500, $3,000. We were just going to offer beer and wine that we got from like Sam's Club or whatever, and thought that we had done pretty well. Well, her father shows up the day of the wedding with a busload of alcohol, top tier alcohol, that like, or top shelf, that's what they call it, right? It's top shelf. They show up with top shelf alcohol, and he also brings a bartender with him. So I'm like, where is we're not, I didn't pay for this. What is going on? He says, no, I got it covered. 6 months after the wedding, he comes to me asking for about $4,000 to pay for the alcohol that he bought and brought to it, the
Wow.
DJ that he showed up, and then because he had purchased a car for her when she was 16 years old, he came asking me for the money to pay him back for the car he bought her 5 years ago. Yeah, that was a good sign of the necessity to get out of what was an absolutely insane
Wow,
situation.
what a story.
Yeah. So,
well, I have another update to give you. I will not be on with you this Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, I know that
because
I was just gonna say, I know there's some things that are going on that need to be taken care of, and
yeah, I mean, no sooner did we get back from the wedding. I mean, I just got home yesterday.
Yeah.
My wife and I are heading up to Charlotte this afternoon, and tomorrow she will be undergoing heart surgery. So there's no rest around here position on Thursday to conduct a podcast with you. So you were going to have to run this one solo. So for those who are curious, I mean, heart surgery, it certainly is serious and
Yeah.
big and scary. But what it is, my wife, and even though she's only in her 40s, she's had a pacemaker for 10 years now. So she got a pacemaker installed in her 30s, which is not usual, right? She belongs to a pacemaker Facebook group, support group, and it's all old people in her, in her 30s. But interestingly, all her life, she has been prone to random seizures. And the seizures where, she passes out completely, shakes, comes out of it, does not know what happened. They were never able to diagnose it. I mean, they thought maybe she had some epilepsy, but every test showed no abnormal brain patterns whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was always the same trigger. It's whenever she felt nauseous, like if she ever got the flu or smelled a bad baby's diaper, whatever it is that triggers the nauseous feeling, that's usually a precursor to an episode where she would pass out from the seizure. So one day, and she just kind of lived with this. Then one day she was donating blood at work, and she had one of these attacks. She felt lightheaded. She was starting to feel a little sick from donating blood. And next thing she knows, she's unconscious on the floor, passed out.
Good.
So the local doctor put her on a table to try to induce another seizure while they had her hooked up with electrodes. So like, all right, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So they got her hooked up head to toe, put her on a tilt table, got her feeling sick, and they were able to trigger an event where she had another seizure and passed out right there on the table. And they got all the measurements. Well, that afternoon, she's home recovering from that. That afternoon, she gets a call that says, we need you to make an appointment with a cardiologist, and you need to be seen tomorrow. And she's like, what? Like, she did not expect, what's a cardiologist have to do with anything? So we go to the cardiologist, and this guy, he's like a 4'8" Yoda, character from Eastern Europe. He was happy. He was like, we know what it is, and we can fix it. So apparently she has this condition that when you feel lightheaded or woozy, your blood pressure drops, and it's basically a protective reaction for your body in case of trauma. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure, it kind of protects itself, right? Her issue is that the body overdoes it, and literally her heart stops. And the seizure is the brain trying to restart the heart through electrical impulses that just cause all sorts of crazy stuff. And then she comes out of it. So that's what they measured on this tilt table test. They saw that her heart had stopped for like 20 seconds. I mean, it was like some scary length of time. But this cardiologist was like, this is awesome. All we need to do is put a pacemaker in you that keeps your heart regular whenever it drops below 60 beats a minute or whatever the number is. And she had that installed. It was, in and out procedure, and she had not had an episode ever since. So that was all great news. Well, until recently, she had an episode, and she passed out, bonked her head on the counter, blood off of her forehead. She passed out, and it was known because one of the leads from the battery of the pacemaker to the heart muscle had failed. And then they did some further tests, and they saw that the leads had actually become embedded in the heart muscle itself. Like over 10 years, the muscle kind of grew around it, and the leads were touching each other, which is not good either. Right. So basically, it just wasn't working anymore. And this requires a certain specialty to go in and correct. And fortunately, there is a practice in Charlotte that does lead repair, where they actually have to unscrew the metal from the heart muscle and pull one lead out, put another lead back in, screw it all back in, and replace the battery and the pacemaker, all that. So it's a complicated procedure, not too uncommon. When you're 10 to 20 years into a pacemaker, this can happen.
Sure.
So that's what we're going in for tomorrow. So for those who are watching and are of the praying type, would certainly welcome prayers for our family for a successful recovery. She's undergoing surgery tomorrow, potentially to be released on Thursday.
Okay.
So it's not expected to be a lengthy stay. Now, she will be in pain for weeks, they said. It's a invasive procedure. And she's going to go on medical leave from work for a couple of weeks while she recovers, but not needing hospital stay, hopefully. So we're hoping for the best.
Absolutely, prayers and best wishes and everything that can be good vibes to be sent in your way. Because
I appreciate the All About Nothing podcast became the All About Bill podcast this week.
Hey,
so I appreciate the storytelling.
Look, just wait for Thursday. Because I hope that my belief is that I'll be giving good news about your wife's condition, and that
thanks. I'll let you know.
So,
and if I fail to let you know, feel free to reach out, because I'll be,
of course,
kind of doped up, not so much sleep. You don't sleep at I don't know. Have you ever had to sleep overnight at a hospital support of somebody else?
Yeah, when my girls were born, Lexington Medical Center was the hospital that we had the girls at, and for 2 nights, because with twins you're supposed to get 3 nights out of insurance. We only got 2. The hospital didn't know that we had 3 under our insurance that was covered. They kicked us out after 2.
Oof.
And I was grateful for being able to go home and sleep in my own bed. Like the couch is the most uncomfortable thing to sit on, and then you try and lay down on it. So the
worst part, because I stayed overnight when she got the pacemaker, and the nurses come in every 2 hours to take vitals. So you're up all night long with the lights going on and talking at top volume. And hey, it's 3 a.m. We just wanted to make sure you were still alive. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I was like, we're not here for you.
The machines are connected to a computer system that actually records the vitals.
I'm not going to tell them how they do their job. I'm just saying that for the innocent bystander who's just trying to get a nap, it's a rough environment to be
in. You're right. I'm not here to correct the medical system. The insurance system, I'd love to correct. That'd be that's well within my capacity. All right. Well, just remind everybody, we are nominated for the All About Nothing podcast, up for Best Local Podcast for the Free Times Best in Columbia. You can vote now. Check the show notes or the allaboutnothing.com. Quick sign up, and boom, you are done. So thank you, Bill. Yeah, today was all about you. Thursday will probably be all about me. So,
and there's so much that's happened this past week too, especially in South Carolina politics. Another Senate candidate jumped in the race, a governor candidate.
Andrews. We got Jermaine Johnson
Yeah.
has an exploratory committee. I'm excited. I think Jermaine will run a good campaign. I think Dr. Andrews is going to run a fantastic campaign. Already reached out to both of them about having them on the All About Nothing podcast. So we'll probably make their way across all of the political versions of.
You'll have them on the same episode with Freddie McClendon. You're gonna have a multiple guest episode there.
I'm disappointed that we have not heard from Freddie. So Freddie, if you watch this, you have my information. Freddie McClendon's got a show coming up June 19th at the Newbury Opera House.
Well, look at you plugging him, trying to curry favor.
Hey, that's all I do. I will kiss up where I need. That is.
I bet you can probably get Marianne Williamson back on. She's not busy.
It's odd. That's interesting. She was discussed just the other night, and what a phenomenal interview that was with such a difficult subject. That's gonna wrap it up for today. Big thanks for tuning in. Don't forget you can follow me at Barrett Gruber and Bill at Political Bill SC. You can catch us every Tuesday and Thursday, except for this Thursday, where Bill may not be around. Won't be 5:30 a.m. Eastern, because apparently sleep is not the most important thing to us. So until next time, you all stay safe, be kind, and keep your hands to yourself. That's good.